Mr. J. Sharma. So one of the first thoughts or comments he posted was, he has a suggestion. If we can prioritize function over form, then several organizations come together to work on common objectives. For example, a project. One organization, for example, local government, can take legal responsibility, but all stakeholders can participate in decision making. The theoretical basis from which this idea was taken was from Elinor Ostrom's Rules for Managing the Commons, the first woman Nobel Prize winner. So anybody, even from the participants, would like to comment on this or to react? Anybody? So what he's trying to say, Mr. J. Sharma was saying is, we can enter into collaboration without really looking at whether you are about your legal identity or legal registration, you know. So that is the point, that the basis for action, the basis for cooperation is the common, what he calls commons, or the common good. So anybody who would like to, yes, Dato.
Ben, I think as a whole, that is not a problem. I think we can support the idea of collectives coming together. Most NGOs are operating like that. But I think in the mapping that we were doing, we were looking at certain indicators to link it to closer to SSE type of organization. So one feature of the SSE type of organizations is its community base and its ability to organize. But in our context, because it also has business and finances along with social responsibility, environment, and so forth, the legal framework was necessary to define it. But in most NGOs that are operating, there are networks, there are alliances, there are community-based. But the minute they want to take a loan or operate a project, they are invariably facing that. And we were using that parameters. So I don't think I would disagree with Sharma in his frame. I think that is it. But the indicators we were using, at least me in my measuring, I think similar to you and as well as Eri, brings the legal dimensions, but we were not just confining to one form of legal entity, different legal entities. And even if one was a cooperative, I think both you and I and Eri were saying they are not necessarily SSE compliant, but we are not trying to be judgmental. We are just seeing how close they are to the various indicators and features or characteristics. Thank you.
Thank you, Dato. There is one comment from Alma Franco. Maybe Alma Franco can explain this, because it just says here, how will you be able to serve the real purpose of it? As what you've said, we're looking only on profit, meaning true cooperativism does not exist. Alma, are you there? Can you elaborate on this question so we can understand it more clearly? Alma? Is Alma there? Or maybe we will wait for Alma, because it's not very clear to me what the question is. Yeah.
Ben, I noticed
Please,
there were one or two questions that were directly to the case study that I presented. I noted it, but I can just highlight it. There was a question comparing this pawnbroking with community banking. I think here the example that we were looking at was that that a community or a faith-based organization took a conventional pawnbroking, which has a higher interest and more difficult surety for the person, largely the poor, participating. And the Malaysian example, through an Islamic approach, was then adopted by the Cooperative Commission as a provision for cooperatives to set the same feature. So somebody could bring a jewelry or a watch or something valuable and then get capital out of that as a short-term loan with a collateral, which was then paid back. But they didn't use an interest system. They used a kind of an administrative charge or a rental system in which the jewelry was kept and a credit was given. And then when they settled it, in comparison to the conventional approach, this was more acceptable. And because it came under the cooperatives, it had a collective impact. So that's my response. The person who asked the question can come back. Ben, there were two other points. One is
Yes.
the theme of right to development. I use the term right to development there to say that in the right to development approach, although we didn't use it in the SSE context, it's closer because of the social and other parallel relevance, such as economic, health, education. So the SSE community-based organizations were linking to other benefits beyond just income. The third, I think, is a colleague of mine from Malaysia, Dr. Doris, who asked, SSE organizations, must they be registered? In the Malaysian example, there is no specific registration, legal registration for an SSE, but SSE was defined using other forms of registration like cooperatives. The social enterprise is an accreditation system, and there different legal registrations could accredit itself using the criteria that their business has a social and environmental impact, and 51% of their income must be generated through business and not through grants. It differs from a society which is normally grant-driven. So compliance to income generation and wealth creation. Thank you, Ben. Those were the questions to me.
Thank you, Dato. Let me just contribute to that discussion regarding the legal personality of SSE. Actually, there are advantages and disadvantages of registration or supervision by the government. Let me first deal with the negatives. First is that there will be a lot of restrictions. You know? There'll be a lot of regulations that you have to go through, because now you're considered to be a formal organization. You have to register, you have to fill up forms and so forth and so on. There are so many regulations to comply with, reports and so forth and so on. So this is the disadvantage of registration. What about the advantage? There's so many advantages. First and foremost, you're recognized in the formal system of the country. So when you are recognized as a formal system in the country, there is a body, government body, that will be responsible for registering, that will be responsible for monitoring the activities and providing regulatory oversight. Now, this will also be consistent with the international development activities of international organizations and bilateral development agencies, including the official development assistance of developed countries. So if the SSE is a recognized sector, then there is deliberation at the international level, at the national level, even in regional forums like ASEAN People's Forum, like the UNESCAP CSO mechanism about this sector, and looking into what is being done in order to help develop the sector. So these are the advantages, because now it's not formally recognized. So it is not in the deliberations of the policymakers. They are not making any programs that will support the sector. So these are the things that come with registration, with legal provision, that recognizes that this sector exists, it has contribution to economy, and that these contributions are necessary, for example, to address social problems like poverty, like social exclusion, and so forth. So these are the things that we consider. And one of the organizations that are very familiar to you is the microfinance organization. In the past, there was no regulation on microfinance. So everybody was asking, what is this microfinance? Is this informal? Is this 5-6? So there's so many thoughts about microfinance. Then when it was legalized, for example, in the Philippines, the Central Bank of the Philippines recognized them. They provided support, and then enabled the sector for self-regulation. They recognized that they can supervise themselves. So this is one of the positive aspects when you have a legal or a policy framework that covers your existence. Okay, so anything from you, Eri? You're raising your hand, please.
Okay, thank you. Unmute first. I would like to make a fruitful discussions as well, contributions regarding to the questions from Sunjoyo Su regarding of the leaderships of the SSE organizations. So I think in this mapping we can see that actually in the world there is two types. This is social driven and the profit driven organizations. The most important here that define as a important criteria for SSE is democratic governance, who mostly lacking in the for-profit organizations. But however, in the map we can see that actually both type of organizations can learn each other. If we are both are really would like to support, accelerate the achieving of the SDGs goal, then we have to accelerate each other. So we can see that the SSE organizations has their strength in equality. How can they innovative in social movement? How can they bring closer the services into the target groups? And from the private sector, we can learn the leadership, the management. So as the Sunjoyo said, that the most weakness of the SSE organizations is the leaderships and the management. So this is, I think this is the chance. We should not separate this. Okay, the mapping is the mapping, but the important, what shall the civil society do to accelerate the SDGs, the world that we are living together there. So that so again, I underline that the SSE can learn from the private sector on their leadership, on the management, while the private sector can learn from the SSE organizations on the decisions making, on the ownership, collective ownerships, on bringing innovative innovation, bringing the services to the community. So that means this is my my response to Sunjoyo statement. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Eri. I'd like to call on Professor Yusuf Kasim. Dato, there is a question here from Juliet Arul Raja. Maybe you can answer. It says here, so hence, is one pathway to sustainable development? And if so, what are other possible pathways to sustainable development? Wouldn't education be another way? Changing mindsets of the poor and training to do so would be important. What's your reaction to that, Datuk?
Need to unmute.
Please unmute. Please unmute.
Okay. Yeah, I think very true. Education is very important, and it is related with the leadership and management just now. If you have a right education, then I think education could be the enabler for any organization, whether SSE or non-SSE. Yeah, that is number one. So to sustain also, I think it's not only that we have to have a good leadership, good management, but I think you must have the proper legal framework. I agree with Ben just now that we have to have a law actually governing us so that we can promote, not law to prevent us to expand, law to promote. So that's why I'm asking, maybe I'm asking Eri, is there any specific law in Indonesia to promote SSE or even in Philippines, but there is none in Malaysia. There is a law on cooperative, yeah, but there is law on societies, NGO, but there is none on SSE. Datuk Denison mentioned about social enterprise. Yes, there is a law on that, but not SSE that we define. Yeah. So please respond to my question as well. Thank you.
Yeah, Datuk Denison, will you respond to that about the need for? Yeah.
I think the survey that we did is actually revealing that legislation, yes, it's important, but the provisions of the Companies Act, much more the Societies Act, the Cooperative Act, does provide opportunities to undertake SSE. Now, the only there are a number of countries, but I think in the Asian side, South Korea has a Social Enterprise Act that provides that. Malaysia has an accreditation. So if we use the fivefold principles that Ben used in this, this mapping exercise, then we can see where is it close. We can push to governments through public awareness or lobby for an adequate law, but that legal approach is tougher. It's better to strengthen Entrepreneurship Act, like in our development planning. There is the approach towards community-based economic projects, one village project, and things of that sort. Now, Ben, I also want to comment on two other points. I saw it in the chat along this line. Yeah. One is, I am actually not promoting pawn shop as an alternative financing for the poor. I'm not saying that. The mapping exercise was to capture what is taking place on the ground that could be close to SSE. It's a mapping exercise. It's not an advocacy or promotion of which is best. So yes, credit unions would be far better, as Jay has suggested, but credit unions outreach to ordinary poor, we have found that even in the COVID period, people making a beeline to the pawn shop for immediate cash. Now, what we have seen is in Malaysia, because the Cooperative Act was amended to include pawn shop broking as an alternative form of financing that is more just and fairer. There is no independent study. I think Prof. Yusof or others here who might be more familiar with the Islamic approach, but the cooperatives have taken on that provision. So it's not just Muslims who go to Arano. There are also a lot of Hindus and others who also go as an access to that credit. So I was just mentioning a mapping exercise and not promoting it. But definitely for the poor on the ground, that doesn't seem to have access to ready cash other than them putting their jewelry, and the cooperatives like Amana Ikhtiar that I suggest highlighted and the Felda seem to bring it. Now, to Juliet's point on sustainable development goals, one of the things that the UN agencies have taken up is they have begun to recognize, and they created a task force in Geneva with 17 different UN agencies led by ILO as the secretariat, that SSE, which is community-based, is providing an avenue for SDG implementation across the 17 SDGs, because they have environmental, social, educational. I think in the mapping exercise, at least what we were looking at, we didn't bring in local communities what is the output that is coming beyond economic activities. But if we look at some of the cooperatives or even community-based projects, they would snowball. Like, I think it will be featured by Dr. Ben, let's say the forest community or other projects, it would be featured that it moves beyond environment, economic, social, addressing poverty, gender equality. These sort of issues emerge from the ground. So Ben, those are some of my points.
Thank you,
Dato.
Thank you. Let me just segue from your presentation, Dato, that the cases about this social impact of SSE organizations, as well as the social impact on sustainability, will be taken up by cases that will be presented on starting tomorrow, October 27, 28, 29, and 30. So today is only the framework, But let me go back, to the point of Juliet about changing mindsets, and how is this related to the legislative agenda. We have to change the mindset of people. And ASEC is saying, when you change the mindset, one of the most important thing is to imbue ethical values. It's not only technical, it's not only the technical, because the market-oriented economy has thrown away values. They're just concerned about prices, about profit, and so forth, margins, and so forth. They have thrown away what are the ethical values that an economy must be concerned, So ASEC is saying, no, we have to bring this back. But then we cannot force, the parliaments to adopt this as a legal framework, because we have to change their mindsets also. But right now, the changing of mindsets is not only, you have to cut across the whole of society, from the grassroots to the local governments, and even beyond that. So here, the legal aspect is correlated with the changing of the mindsets. And for this reason, that is my answer also to Dr. Rosalinda Ofreneo. What can we bring to the ASEAN Forum? This is what we'd like to bring, that as a people, we've got to change our way of looking at things, because the systems that we have right now, they are not helping in alleviating poverty, in bringing the poor to the mainstream. So we have to think of alternatives. And there are already alternatives. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. All we need to do is to study them. That's why in ASEC, we focus on case studies. So tomorrow, starting tomorrow, we will present this. Tomorrow, we'll be looking at what are the ways of building resilient and sustainable communities. So if you continue to participate in this forum, the more concrete cases will be discussed. But what we'd like to have here is, a congruence of the people who really are desirous of making changes, in the way people are living. But from the perspective of ASEC, it's very important to have leaders and managers imbued with ethical values. This is our main contribution to the discussion of SSE. So what are the other Any other comments or ideas from the floor? Because we are now beyond our time, 5:34 already. So if, for example, there are more who would like to say, maybe we can adjust, give more time for participants to share your thoughts, you know.
Yes,
Yes.
Please,
May I
please.
be allowed to
really there.
speak, Kuya Ben?
Please,
Sure.
yes, Lynn, please.
Yeah. Good afternoon. I am Lynn from the Philippines, and I would just like to share our experience during the lockdown, the start of the lockdown, during the COVID pandemic, and the initiative that is now, I would say, snowballing into a full-blown SSE. Okay, I'm talking about what happened with Fruits of the Land. It was a social enterprise born out of the COVID-19 pandemic, in the sense that during that time the farmers do not have a market for their produce, specifically fruits from Bataan. And so Fruits of the Land was, I would say, an accidental social enterprise born out of the COVID-19 adversity. And at the start, it had four-pronged mission. One is that the Filipino farmers' produce will get to the market during the time of COVID. Number two is for the farmers to get a fair return for their honest sweat. Number three is to create an alternative income stream by mobilizing resellers, retailers, and delivery service providers who will bring those produce straight from the farm into the tables of the consumers. And four, a mission to provide equitable access by all to healthy food by making them affordable. Okay, starting Fruits of the Land is now being registered as a duly registered company. I would like to go back to the point of whoever was that raised uh, prioritizing function over form, because there was a need already during the COVID-19, and we just have to rise up to the challenge of bringing the produce in Metro Manila so they can reach the tables of consumers. And we did that. So fulfilling that function without any legal personality at all. Even the farmers who were supplying those fruits were not even at that time organized into cooperative yet, and now they are organized already into a cooperative. Okay, I organized the resellers. The resellers came from posh subdivisions of Metro Manila, and they took up the challenge of helping me sell the fruits of the farmers. And it continued, starting with the mango. Now I'm selling pomelo, I'm selling um, durian, rambutan, lanzones from Mindanao, from Laguna, from Pampanga. And so I would say it's snowballing, continuing to snowballing. And the farmers right now, we have organized them and started teaching them about Jadam natural farming systems, the goal of which is sustainability of the land, restoring the integrity of the farmland so that the farmers do not have to rely on chemical fertilizers and pesticides, and so that they can reduce the cost of farm inputs. They can even produce their own pesticides and fertilizers using this technology. And there is, again, a snowballing of so many farmers now uh, now excited about the idea of their produce being healthy and being uh, them being able to produce healthy food and being able to create a livelihood out of their small farm holdings, and at the same time being able to link up with a system already in place in Metro Manila that can market their produce. So what am I saying? It is a complete social enterprise satisfying all five of the components of an SSE, but it is not legally registered in the sense that as an SSE can be legalized as one body. But Fruits of the Land is now being legalized, being formally registered with SEC. The cooperative is now registered. All I need to do now is to get the resellers and the delivery service providers to get on board with Fruits of the Land to become partners as social enterprise stakeholders.
Thank you,
So
Lynn.
what I'm
Yeah,
saying is
yeah.
something else. It can move on, it can progress, but we definitely have to start and meet the demand as it happens right now, or as it comes along right now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, thank you. So that's a good example of an initiative without legal framework. You can still, you know, you can initiate something that really benefits the community. So any other um, points that you'd like to raise or share in this forum? Now, all of your comments here and questions, we will recycle this for the ASEAN People's Forum. And all of you, we are automatically registering you for the Asian People's Forum. So if you want to register your comments and also questions, even after this session, you can do so. You can just send your comments to, for example, Chandra or Datuk Denison or Eri or me, and then we can collect that and make that part of the ASEAN People's Forum. Of course, with your name, you know, attached to this, the comments and also the questions. You know. So, are there any Dato Yusuf? Would you like to see further something? You can share your ideas.
Actually, I wanted to ask Dr. Eri just now, is there is any specific law on promoting SSE in Indonesia? Is there any?
Okay, we have a law on cooperative, yeah.
Okay.
And the constitutions stated clearly that the principle of social solidarity is there as a national economic system as well. But however, I think if we don't have the SS social enterprise bill is under the process to have the issuance from the House Parliamentary. But to my opinions, the SSE and the cooperative has stigmatized by the all of the people and the government to be like the business entity for that conducted in only in small scale businesses. Yeah. So if you see from the hospital law on hospital, we can see that actually they just put the foundations and the private sector as legal entity, and they do not mention that cooperative can be able as well as the legal body for the hospital businesses. And then such for the state-owned company, if the government acknowledge all the type of the legal entity, either this is collective ownership or this is selected ownership like the company, they should provide as well in the law that cooperative can be as well the alternative as a legal body for state-owned company. So I see that they discriminated this, yeah, and they stigmatize the cooperative and social enterprise only for the community neighborhood cooperative in the village, and you see for the registrations much easier to establish the legal entity of the company, private company, rather than the cooperative. For the cooperative, you have to collect that 20 peoples from the same area, and all these 20 people should come to the law. So while for the company, you can only three at least. Three people gathered and they can sign from the notary, they can sign the act. So you can see that is actually that Okay, I think we have to more the enabling framework for the SSE organizations into the cooperative. So, but again, legal entity, as Ben and Datuk said, legislation doesn't guarantee that the SSE values will be practices. Yeah. A lot of cooperative Indonesia, but I'm not sure that all of this cooperative has practices the democracy features in their organizations. Therefore, the network of the civil society, like what the SSE, what the ASEC would like to establish, this is important. Like a check and balance among us, doing the self-assessment, and then promoting, reminding the friends, reminding the among the SSE organizations to stick to focus and try to bring back to the practicing of the 5 dimensions of the SSE. So this is Yusuf Kasim, Datuk. I hope that fulfill
Okay.
your questions. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Chandra has a request to all to turn on your your photo, because we're going to have a group photo. So Chandra, can you give us the cue?
Yes, sure. I'm waiting for others to turn on their video. We invite you to turn on your video so we can make a group photo of this meeting. Okay, I'm waiting for some. Okay, I will take in 2 photo. The first take will be in 3, 2, 1. That's 1. Okay, wait for a while, and then I'm taking the second photo in 3, 2, 1. Okay, thank you everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Back to you,
Another
Dr.
one,
Ben.
Chandra, can you provide guidelines how to go to the Zoom room tomorrow for the session tomorrow?
Oh yeah.
How do we do that? Please.
Yeah, tomorrow, if everyone is here, then that means that you already received the email containing the link. So please use the same link, use the same email to access the tomorrow room.
Okay, thank you. So
And
if there is no more comments, thank you very much to everyone, and have a good time, stay safe, and see you